Happy Friday and welcome to Career Launch Live. I am your host, Catherine McCord, and today is actually not a live episode. Unfortunately, very fortunately, I am speaking at a wonderful event today, and so we have pre-recorded this event. These lovely, gracious ladies decided to pre-record with me. I cannot tell you how excited I am to have these two individuals. They both fascinate and utterly tickle me as a human, and today we're going to be talking to you about how diet affects your productivity, your work, your communication, your mindset, and all of this. It's going to be fascinating stuff. So without further ado, I'm going to start with Miss Kristen immediately to my right here, or left, whatever it is on the screen. I don't know, right from left. But do, by the way, feel free to still comment. We will reply to you later at the time of the show and after the show as well. So Kristen, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm Dr. Kristen Weisdack, CEO and founder of Behavior Works of Southwestern PA. And essentially, I help parents and providers understand that behavior is a lot more than meets the eye. A lot of parents that I work with, professionals that I work with, are getting frustrated and overwhelmed with navigating behavioral issues, whether it's with themselves, with their children, with their students, their clients. And I help people understand the root causes of behavior related to nutrition and gut dysbiosis. And I'm sure many of the things that we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. And by the way, you're with the right crowd, because Lisa and I definitely have behavioral problems that need to be addressed.
We are behavioral problems.
We are walking, talking behavioral problems. So this is so perfect that we've had you on here today, Kristen. Thank you so very much for joining us. And then Lisa Duke. Tell us, for those that weren't here with us the last time you were with me, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a mindset coach for women over 40, and I really help them focus on changing their behavior, whether that's eating related, getting in the healthy movement, because I find, if my clients were 5, they might not know vegetables are good for you, but women over 40, we kind of know, right? However, we told our kids that they should be eating is how we should be eating too. But why can we not get ourselves to do that? So I deal a lot with behavioral change and really questioning a lot of the stories we were raised with, a lot of the assumptions we grew up with, and also getting a little deeper into some of the self-worth issues, things like that, and just helping my clients make and take the time to take better care of themselves.
I like that. That is a beautiful explanation. In fact, I think that's the best explanation I've heard you give of what you do. So go, Lisa. Good job.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm recording.
I am so bad at telling people what you do in one way. So this is what I've started telling people. I'm like, Lisa, get your head right so that you're not fat and unhealthy.
Yeah. That too.
That's it. That's what she does. I don't know. I should probably just limit it. That's unhealthy, so it doesn't sound derogatory.
Yeah, some people don't like the F word, but we're all saying it in our heads about ourselves.
Yeah, I do, because I'm chunky, and it's okay. I'm okay with it's just you. But thanks to you, I have lost significant weight, as you know. So, ladies, so we're going to talk about this in terms of the workplace. And one thing that I teach a lot about is just general wellness in the workplace and supporting just good habits. And for years, the first thing I want to address, because for years this has been an issue, people skipping meals while they work, which drives me up the wall. And to me, it's utterly confusing, because I've been having crazy deadlines and had insanity. And as you know, Lisa, I've never skipped a meal. It's just not a thing that happens. I eat, and I eat on time, and I'm meticulous about when I eat. But I'm also an OCD person. So let's talk about the damage that can cause, if it does, and then the solutions around that. But let's first talk about the damage and kind of maybe some issues that could cause. I'm going to kick it to you first, Lisa, and then we're going to move over to Kristen.
I was actually going to take the other side of it, which is...
Oh, okay. Good. Tell me I'm wrong.
I don't think it's that bad. And again, it depends on the person, and it depends upon what the condition is. And Dr. Kristen, if you know more than me, you're totally allowed to disagree. But a lot of my clients, again, they're focused on weight loss. And a lot of people have this programming that we must eat breakfast. And, to me, primary research is always the best. Like, what works for you personally.
Yeah.
And a lot of my clients find like they're not hungry in the morning. They don't want to eat, and they just were doing it because their mom used to make them do it. So my kind of philosophy is like, if you're trying to lose weight and you're not hungry, why are you eating? Right? We
Yeah.
do need to eat at some point to like not die.
My thinking
But,
though is that
you know,
what I'm really sorry, real quick, just so you know, I'm
yeah.
talking about the people who are hungry and they just don't eat anyway because they're so busy.
Yeah, man, I don't know anything about that. I guess just like meal That's why I tried to answer a different question, like meal plan, prep, have healthy snacks in the office.
Oh, now that's the smart,
But
the meal prep. That's a
yeah,
hit. That's a big one because then you don't have to like take the time to like go figure it out, right?
exactly.
So
Yeah, but I'm with
if you're
you. Like
time
if I
crunched,
get hungry, I'll go eat. So, but
yeah.
yeah, I bet Dr. Kristen knows more.
No,
So
but
maybe
hold on.
she
But I
has
do want to hit on
more
two things
answer.
that you
Okay.
said. So number one, the
Yeah.
assumption is always that the people are hungry. Some people are not. I have
Yes.
worked with people who genuinely only eat breakfast and dinner, which for
Yeah.
me, I mean, I eat lunch and dinner. I don't eat breakfast, but it's just different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
So number one,
And
the
it's funny
assumption, but
'cause
then
sorry,
yeah,
I get
no,
excited.
you're good.
I was just going to say, we were all told that skipping breakfast is bad, but we're also now hearing that intermittent fasting is good. So it's important that you call it intermittent fasting and not skipping breakfast.
Oh, okay. There it is. So intermittent fast. It's not intermittent. I just don't do it unless I just randomly want to.
Just narrowed your eating window. You just have to claim that that's what you're doing. It's the same
Okay.
thing.
Thank you for correcting me. I'm glad to know. I want my terminology on point. So, Kristen, I'm very curious your thoughts on this about folks that say that they're too busy to eat and how that might affect them.
I mean, there's 3 points that I really jotted down as you guys were talking back and forth. One of the things I know that with my neurodiversity, if I get in a state of flow, sometimes I genuinely forget to eat because I'm just so immersed in my work. So that's one of the things that will affect my eating and not eating. The other thing that happens, and I guess this comes back to neurodiverse people, but maybe people that are neurodiverse that don't know about it.
Also that.
We have 8 sensory systems, and one of them is called your interoceptive awareness system, which basically connects your organs to your brain and tells you about, are they full or are they empty? And it gives you information about your heart and your stomach, your bowels, your bladder. And sometimes people genuinely aren't getting reliable signaling from your organs to your brain to tell you about those things.
That's true.
And so we get kids that are over responsive in that area, that are eating all the time, and that plays into nutrition and digestion, constipation and diarrhea. There's all these other things that are happening. But some people genuinely aren't getting reliable signaling from their organs to their brain to tell them about how hungry they might be in that moment.
So how do they fix that?
Well, you have to work on getting rid of the inflammation and adding the vitamins and minerals that you're deficient in. Okay. Because that all plays a role in helping healthy signaling happen back and forth in your body, between your neurons, your sensory systems, between your central nervous system, your brainstem, and your peripheral nervous system. So you take away inflammatory foods once you get reliable blood work that gives you information on what are called IgG, IgA, and IgG antibodies, but also your vitamin and mineral deficiencies. So it all comes down to like a human recipe. What I tell people in my trainings is everybody has their own human recipe. So you have your ingredients that you're supposed to have, but some people don't know what that recipe is until you get the right blood work to tell you that.
And that's so crucial. And I want to hit on this real quick because you and I shared this with you when we very first spoke, that I used to get teased about some of the ways that I ate. And I would just always tell people, look, whatever my body needs, that's what I'm going to give it. And then sure enough, I get this blood work years later, like years into all of this, I get blood work that tells me, and one of the things I had teased about was my salt intake. I just crazy table salt intake. And come to find out, I have both sodium and iodine deficiencies. And what's in table salt? Both sodium and iodine. So my body was like, gimme, 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 gimme. And that is what I needed. And now we figure out different ways to kind of go about that. But it was, to your point, every human is different. Every single makeup is different. And what each person needs. We're just little unique flowers, basically. But what was your third thought on that? I know you said you had a third.
The other thing is what Lisa talked about is intermittent fasting. So the beautiful thing about fasting, and I always think about historically human evolution on Earth in general. So if you think about our ancestrals that lived in caves, right, they were hunters, they were gatherers, and they had to go out and hunt food. So what ended up happening is this evolution of the human species that isn't really necessarily meant to eat 3 to 5 meals a day. So what ends up happening, just like if you drive your car a lot, it breaks down faster.
Right.
So the principle of intermittent fasting really helps with what's called telomere support. So at the ends of your DNA, you have like these shoelace caps that keep your DNA beautifully encapsulated and nice and tight, right? But if we use our bodies a lot and we're eating a lot all the time, that starts to unravel and that accelerates aging. So
oh God, I'm going to be dead really early.
What happens is the same principle, right? It's like if you're driving your car, if you're using your vehicle a lot, it's going to break down faster and it's going to make noises and get aches and pains and all these things. But so intermittent fasting helps with that process to make sure that you're healthier for longer periods of time.
Right. Give it rest. That's the message here. And I do want to give, so I think both of you made very important points about the other things that can cause it that can actually be healthy or be signs of health conditions. The other side of that, though, is that sometimes it's behavioral from the standpoint of expectations that have been placed on a person or that they have placed on themselves. Because there have been times I've had people, well, I have to work through lunch. Or I said, who told you that? And it turns out nobody has that expectation of them but themselves. And so making sure that we're also having the healthy expectations of ourselves and that our employer has healthy expectations of us as well. And sometimes set a reminder to eat, because I've known people that skipped 3 meals because they were working. I'm like, no. We need fuel in our human bodies. So, making sure also to take that time to breathe and relax as well. So that's one pattern. So then the next thing about eating that I wanted to talk about is cognitive function and what people can be doing, because God, I know I need increased cognitive function. What we can be doing in terms of our diet to increase the cognitive function. So Miss Lisa, what are you thinking we need to be doing?
Well, and this goes back to paying attention to what is working for us personally, because even though I said I'm not a breakfast person, I find I do better without it. That's not everybody. Right. And I have read, I can't remember where, but I have read for people that have problems with dopamine that protein in the morning for a lot of people gets a little dopamine bump and can really help them. So that could be a cognitive piece as well. If you've got the kind of neurodiversity where you're low on dopamine and you find from experimenting on yourself that
works like right here.
Right? Yeah. So if that works for you and you feel better, do that, right? Just because we said intermittent fasting is good. If it doesn't work for you,
then don't. Yeah, there's protein bars, there's eggs, there's all kinds of things that you can do to just very quickly get yourself a nice little healthy protein.
So that can be a trick. And sorry, what were you going to say?
No, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just going to say serotonin as well. And I bet Dr. Kristen knows way more about this than I do. But there's definitely, they're doing more and more research on the connection between the gut and the brain chemicals. And serotonin is one of those like balance you out, feel better kind of chemicals. And some huge percentage of that is actually made in the gut. So making sure you're getting good, nourishing food so your body can make serotonin so you don't have to go, buy it or
it's true.
Right?
And
give yourself as much as you can.
On the continuing with that line of thought, Lisa. So I have mast cell activation syndrome. And so and for people who don't know, so the mast cells are what respond to allergic responses, right? And they're down here in your gut. That's where they're located. That's where they live. I didn't know this until I had this condition and had to treat it. It's very fascinating to me. So when you're also having like brain fog, not frog, you don't have brain frogs, brain fog from allergies and things like that, working with your gut can help. And then also when you have other types of, just you're dragging, you're not really, getting where you need to be, making sure that you have the right nutrition can really help you. Also making sure that you are regular. I know nobody wants to really talk about that, but eating your greens because that keeps you sharp. It keeps you healthy. It keeps you feeling good. It keeps your energy right. And that has a lot to do with your productivity at work. And Dr. Kristen, on this note about breakfast, we seem real stuck on breakfast today. So I want to ask you a very specific question, because Lisa was giving some healthy ideas about what you can do to bring that energy. But there's a very unhealthy thing that a lot of people do, which is just jolt themselves with mass amounts of caffeine. And I'm not knocking having 1 cup of tea or maybe even 1 cup of coffee, but we all know those folks that have 5 cups of coffee throughout a day or even more. So what are some of your thoughts about that?
So it depends on the acidity of the coffee, first of all, because really you want to make sure that even if there's these new mushroom coffees, you're talking about cognition. Yeah. There's a lot of coffees with lion's mane.
No, wait, hold on. Wait, you said mushroom coffees. Do those get you high? That's what comes into my mind, is that you're going to be a psychedelic trip. No, okay.
That's a different kind of shrooms.
Yeah.
Ooh. And now we all know something about Catherine. No, I'm kidding. No, go ahead.
That'll be next year's retreat. No.
There you go.
But no, there's a lot of acidity in coffee. Mm-hmm. And if you're not eating organic, so you're changing the pH of your body. Honestly, you want your alkalinity between 7.5 and 7.8, because
like a pool.
Yes, exactly. If you open your body up to become too acidic, you open it up for free radicals and cancers and health problems. So that's one thing. So making sure you're finding a healthy coffee, but organic as well. Because when you are consuming foods that are sprayed with herbicides and pesticides, it does something called disrupt the shikimate cycle of the bug, which ultimately kills it. But the thing is, when we ingest foods that are not organic, that's also killing the bugs or gut bacteria. Mm-hmm. Like we were talking about, it disrupts the creation of these neurotransmitters like GABA, epinephrine, norepinephrine, serotonin, melatonin, all the things that are manufactured partially in the gut. Mm-hmm. And some of the vitamins that are manufactured in the gut microbiome, right? They're getting disrupted because of this process. Mm-hmm. So making sure that you're making informed decisions about your coffee, getting organically sourced, making sure that it's not too acidic, mm-hmm. and that it's something that's right for you. But my question would be upfront, why do you need to drink so much coffee, right? I stopped drinking coffee probably about... Well, if my son climbs in bed with us at 3 a.m. because he's had a bad dream, I have coffee days, right?
No. We all do. No judgment on coffee. I want to put that out there. We all sneak it in there every once in a while.
But I would question, why do you need to consume so much coffee, mm-hmm. right? If you are waking up and you're feeling lethargic, what's making you feel that way to begin mm-hmm. with, right? A lot of the foods that we eat that we have allergic, intolerant, or sensitive responses to are making us more sluggish.
Yes. And real quick, I want to kick that over to Lisa, because yes, 100% yes. That. So Lisa, a while back, you and I had a great conversation on this. So I want to kick that over to you real quick. So tell us a little bit about that, how these different little things can affect your energy and kind of keep the ball rolling on that thought process.
Yeah, well, redirect me because I'm not remembering exactly what you're telling, what story you're tell.
It doesn't matter. Just okay. Keep going. Keep going.
I have definitely had feedback from clients, because my whole thing is trying to shift them. And healthy is a spectrum, and it's kind of subjective, but we kind of know, right? More vegetables, lean protein,
energy,
fruit. Yeah. And I had a client who worked with me for 4 months, lost weight, felt great. And then, once she wasn't working with me as closely and was more into maintenance, started kind of sneaking some treats in, some sugary things. And she told me, she's like, oh my gosh, this morning I got up and I had that old lady feeling coming mm-hmm. down the stairs. And I really realized that, at least for me, at least for this point in my life, the sugar just tears me up, right? Yeah. Inflammation, low energy. So we think sugar gives us energy, and maybe it does, in the moment.
A little burst.
And then we crash, like with anything else, right? We crash and we feel so much worse. So a lot of that.
Hold on real quick. My best story on that to help people understand. So we've all drank too much. If you're going to sit here and try to pretend like you haven't, folks, you're full of it. So we've all drank too much at some point. Remember what a hangover is? that's because of how the sugar broke down in your body and overloaded your system. And it's very unpleasant. So you are essentially giving yourself a hangover when you eat things like this that are not the best for you. Anyway, Lisa, go ahead.
No, I'd never thought of it that way, but that makes sense.
Mhm.
So it's so true. And if you are in your 40s, or you will be one day, you start to notice like, oh yeah,
Hopefully.
I used to be able to get really drunk on a Thursday night and then take 2 Advil, glass of water, go to class at 8 a.m. But now if I have a glass of wine Thursday night, Monday morning, I still don't feel great. The same thing is happening with your ability to process sugar. So maybe as a kid, you could eat sugary cereal for breakfast. You could have a Snickers bar in the afternoon and you felt fine. As we get older, we don't clear that stuff as easily. And
Right.
so I thought, oh, this must just be aging. This is what being in your 40s feels like. It does not have to feel that way.
No. And it's interesting too, because people think sugar is only sweets, and that's not it. So like ketchup, fried food, the list goes on and on. There's so much that has alcohol, like I said, has so much sugar in it. So you have to be very, very careful. So Kristen, I have one for you, because since you kind of specialize working with neurodiverse individuals and kind of working even with the kiddos, right? And getting them processing properly and all that. How are you seeing an impact in shift in diet and behavioral concerns, both in adults and children?
Dramatic. It's dramatic. I just had a child that I saw this morning at 9 a.m. and I started working with him about 3 weeks ago. I didn't even see him last week. So I saw him 2 weeks ago and then today. They have cut out gluten and dairy, and they started him on a probiotic because he had signs, right? We're not just guessing. I know by looking at a child, if you have ongoing eczema or if you have constipation or diarrhea, or you are having, dark circles under the eyes called allergic shiners, or a fold under there called a Denny-Morgan fold, there's clear signs. Your skin is your biggest organ, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not guesswork. It's backed by research and evidence-based practice. We know that those things are happening in the body. So we remove them, and he's a different child. He is now not climbing nearly as much. He is able to transition, accept no, make decision. Because the crazy thing is, there can be trauma captured in the body that messes with your cognitive process while we're talking about that. But another thing that keeps kids locked in this fight or flight mode is the inflammation from the foods they eat. And when you're locked in this fight or flight mode, you're living in your very old primitive brain. And your primitive brain just keeps you going whether you're thinking about it or not. It's your breathing brain, basically.
Right. And it's the same for adults, too, I would think.
Exactly.
Like, it's the exact same thing. Yeah.
So what ends up happening, it's that your executive functioning centers of your brain essentially become inaccessible. So it impacts your brain fog, your ability to make decisions, to transition easily from one thing to another, to deal with changes in your environment, rapidly changing environment stimuli and things like that.
And hold on, I want to pause on that one real quick, because this is a thing that's happening to a lot of people right now, because jobs are changing real fast. Job styles are changing real fast. Mm-hmm. The world is actually changing pretty fast. Mm-hmm. So what can people do to increase their ability specifically to function with that better and to kind of flow through that a little bit smoother?
Yeah, so it depends on the practicality of these approaches. If I know that a family has access to funds to work with a nutritionist that can do blood work, right? We take a lot of the guesswork out and we say, this is your blood work. This is your hair, blood, your urinalysis. This tells us what antibodies you have going on. So we know specifically what allergies and intolerances to food you have. We look at your vitamin and mineral deficiencies. Look at easy ways to detoxify your body, ionic foot baths, or you can eat more broccoli, make sure you're exercising, you're sweating out toxins. But looking at the big picture approach, if you don't want to do blood work, just start by taking out some inflammatory foods like gluten and dairy. Gluten is wheat, barley, and rye from your diet. Start by taking out those highly inflammatory foods. Reduce your sugar intake because it does create some gut dysbiosis as well. And, just think about taking some data before you do that and after, because as a behavior analyst, right, it's important that we make data-driven decisions. So even if you do like a food mood diary, right, you eat and track the food and drink that you have for 5 days and how you feel afterwards, and then cut out the gluten and dairy.
Right.
That's why we use behavioral changes to do that systematically. And then how you feel after that.
Yeah.
You know, you might notice a change in your lethargy, in your anxiety, in your depression. You might actually feel rested when you wake up in the morning, and you don't have to have that cup of coffee.
Right. So, but if that's not it, then you're also going to know.
If that's not it, right? That's when the blood work comes in to say, what else should we be taking? How can we specifically identify what your recipe needs to look like for you? And what are some behavioral modification techniques that we can implement that Lisa could help people with too? What are behavioral modification techniques that we could help you make healthier choices?
100%. So Lisa, following up on that, when somebody, let's say they don't have the resources to do the blood work, and by the way, folks, just some real quick resources where you can help get inexpensive blood work. If you have a direct primary care doctor in your area, sign up with them. There is a membership, but then your blood work is so cheap. After that, it could definitely be worth it, even if you have insurance. There can also be a lot of city and county programs that can help you get blood work done very, very cheaply, especially in areas that are very concerned about health. For instance, in Florida, they're super into getting you just, x-rayed up and MRIs and blood work. There's all kinds of cheap programs here. It's actually cheaper without insurance than with. So check into your city and county resources as well. So Lisa, my last question for you is, as people are thinking about this, like, oh my gosh, okay, well, there's so many different options and there's all these different things I could do, but how do I keep myself motivated to do it and to pay attention to what I'm eating and the fuel that I'm putting into my body? What are your tips for those people?
I think some of it is recognizing sort of where you are in the process. So I talk about like this downward cycle and the upward cycle. And when we're in either one, it kind of has its own momentum. So when we're in the downward cycle, we think, well, I just love sweets and I'm addicted to sugar and I'm just eating normal food, or I should be able to eat normal food. It is hard to break out of that and to transition. But once you do, then you get in the upward cycle and you're like, oh, like my palate has reset and I actually find I like some fruit now, whereas before it didn't do anything for me. And then you start to feel better, and then you get like habits and patterns and momentum. So I think knowing that, okay, it's hard to stop and to change, but once I have changed, it does get easier and you don't really miss it. That's the big thing. People think like, I'm going to be so sad if I can never have cake again. Like, no, you're going to feel so good. You're not going to care. You're going to be like, I would rather feel good than have cake. And it's like a cult because people don't believe it from the outside. Like when we're in the downward cycle, we think the healthy people are nuts.
Lisa, I've got to tell you, I'm in the cake cult. I love cake. I'm deep in.
Do your food and mood journal.
I'm deep in. I actually am very good about. I'm good about how I eat, except for cake. I can't give it up.
You can also use some fading techniques that we can actually get you to that point using behavioral techniques. It's fine.
Oh yeah, no, there's a whole contact. I was going to say we're just going to have to tell you at this point to just contact one of these lovely ladies to do this. Lisa's done some spectacular work. In fact, one of the most genius things that Lisa does is she just points out things that really should have been obvious to you in the first place, but she does it in such a way that you feel like you've come to this realization all on your little self. It's very good. And it feels very natural. That kind of process. And I know working with Kristen, I could tell just from talking to her, she's all the information. She explains it to you so that you can definitely understand everything that is happening. And what's going on, makes logical recommendations, explains why. I know you explain why very, very well, because I've never had to ask you why. You just tell me the why, and it's wonderful, which could be a neurodiverse thing. But I know that I'm going to have both of you tell people how to get hold of you, and just even get some advice if you want them to come in and talk to your workplace, talk to you and a group of friends, or even just you personally. Reach out to them. They're extraordinary humans. But before we go, we do have a slightly new format of the show where I ask you a couple of questions at the end that kind of pertain to the episode. So I'm going to start with Kristen on this. What is the unhealthy food that you had the hardest time letting go of?
Oh, I would have to say pizza.
Oh, fair enough.
And
yeah, that's a tough one.
it's not like terribly unhealthy, right? But it's the thick, gluten-y pizza. Like
Yeah.
gluten-free pizzas are like usually
Ugh.
pancake thin, and sometimes the cauliflower is off. I would have to say a good hearty gluten pizza. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a toughie. I had to give up pizza for other reasons because of my MCAS, and it's not an acceptable thing. Just for anybody out there, the lean cuisine pizzas don't mess with me too bad. So depending on why you might need to give up pizza, that could be a possible alternative. Miss Lisa Duke, what was the unhealthy food that was hardest for you to give up?
Chocolate.
You didn't give that up. You still eat chocolate.
That's how hard it is. I still do it.
My favorite Lisa moment was when I was sitting with her at a networking event here, because she's actually local to me, and she starts eating cookies, and I was like, yes, I'm sitting next to the weight loss coach that eats cookies. This is awesome. Yeah,
they were chocolate chip.
yeah, it was chocolate chip. It was chocolate. She couldn't give it up. All right, so that was the first round. So here's the second one. If you could give anybody, and I'm gonna start with Kristen. If you could give anybody a piece of advice just in life, just this is the wisdom that you need to have in general for your success as a human, what would it be?
Trust your gut. When
your literal gut or like your instinctive gut?
Well, they're one and the same, but that's a whole nother story for another episode. But
yeah,
your gut makes a lot of decisions for you. It's a whole thing. But trusting your gut when it comes to especially working with a medical provider, find a person that's going to listen to you. And if something in your gut tells you that it's not right, you go for another opinion. So many parents will be in front of a provider that says, oh, it's just a boy thing, or, there's nothing wrong with you if you're an adult working with a provider, and for sure, right? You're the one waking up every day wanting to take a 2-hour nap and with aches and pains. Trust a provider and find somebody holistic that can help you.
Yeah, 100%. And holistic, just to be clear for the audience, that doesn't necessarily mean hippie doctor, okay?
No.
That just means somebody that takes care of the whole being.
Yes,
that's all that means.
Medicine doctor is optimal.
Yes, I thought you said optimal. That was so spectacular. All right, so Lisa, same question.
I think the biggest thing is, and this is kind of like but recognizing that each of us were programmed, and that whatever was programmed can be deprogrammed and reprogrammed. So just
as the lady who also owns an IT consulting business, love it.
There's a lot of crossover, right? Is we kind of think like, oh, this is just how I am. Like, yeah, because of what your parents used to always say, or what you made it mean, or
whatever, just your life.
Yeah, and a lot of that, like, question everything. A lot of that, you can change your mind, and therefore change everything else in your life.
Oh, that's really good advice too. And with that, we're going to say goodbye. And real quick, ladies, tell everybody how to find you. Lisa, start with you. How do they find you?
My website is lisaduke.net. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok at Lisa Duke STS, so Sierra Tango Sierra. And I'm on YouTube. The easiest way to get to that is lisaduke.net/YouTube.
Awesome. And Miss Kristen, what about you?
My website is Behavior Works. That's Behavior, BEHAVIORWORX of southwesternpa.com. My email is behaviorworkspa@gmail.com. And then I'm also on YouTube at Beyond Behavior. And then if people want to schedule a 30-minute complimentary call, it is calendly.com/behaviorworkspa.
I love it. That was awesome. All right. Well, thank you so very much, ladies. Thank you very much to our audience. Please feel free to reach out to any of us with questions, thoughts, ideas, needs, whatever it is that you have going on. And we'll be back same time, same place next week with a new great topic and a new fantastic guest.